Hello, Saints. We're looking today in the book of Revelation at the story about two rivers. In Revelation 14, we have the first verses, 1 through 6, which deals with the 144,000 victorious on Mount Zion with Jesus, the Lamb. And then the second part, we have verses 6 to 12, or you can include 13, for the three angels' messages. This is the last message that goes out into the world. And then after that, in verses 14 on to the end of the chapter, you have the second coming of Christ. And then in chapter 15, verses 1 to 4, you have the saints on the sea of glass, victorious in heaven. And so what we want to look at here is the story about two rivers. And that's found in the second coming after verse 14 of chapter 14. John writes, "Then I looked, and behold, a white cloud, and on the cloud sat one like the Son of Man, having on his head a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle. And another angel came out of the temple, crying with a loud voice to him who sat on the cloud, Thrust in your sickle and reap, for the time has come for you to reap, for the harvest of the earth is ripe. So he who sat on the cloud thrust in his sickle on the earth, and the earth was reaped. Then another angel came out of the temple which is in heaven, he also having a sharp sickle. And another angel came out from the altar, who had power over the fire, and he cried with a loud cry to him who had the sharp sickle, saying, Thrust in your sharp sickle, and gather the clusters of the vine of the earth, for her grapes are fully ripe. And so the angels thrust his sickle into the earth, and gathered the vine of the earth, and threw it into the great winepress of the wrath of God. And the winepress was trampled outside the city, and blood came out of the winepress up to the horses' bridles for 1,600 furlongs. What we see here in the guise of the grapes is a river of blood for the wicked. Notice how long it is. It's for 1,600 furlongs. It comes up to the horses' bridles. This is how much of those who have rejected God is filling the earth with this river of blood. This isn't a standalone. Remember, John is using the language of the past to write about the present and the future. And he gets this idea out of Ezekiel chapter 47. And go with me back there to Ezekiel chapter 47. And there in Ezekiel, we're going to see a river of life, something entirely different than what we've seen here. It's the first, about the first 12 verses. We won't go through it just enough so that you can see and make a comparison. Beginning in verse 1, there in Ezekiel 47, Ezekiel writes, And then he brought me back to the door of the temple. There was water flowing from under the threshold of the temple toward the east. For the front of the temple faced east. The water was flowing from under the right side of the temple, south of the altar. He brought me out by way of the north gate and led me around on the outside to the outer gateway that faces east, and there was water running out on the right side. And then the man went out to the east with a line in his hand, and he measured 1,000 cubits, and he brought me through the waters. The waters came up to my ankles. Again he measured 1,000 and brought me through the waters. The water came up to my knees. Again he measured 1,000 and brought me through the water, came up to my waist. As he goes through, the water gets deeper and deeper. The water flows down out of the temple into the eastern side of Jerusalem, there into the Kidron Valley, the Kidron River. During the sacrifices, like at times of Yom Kippur and Passover, the river would flow with blood. It's more of a creek, really. A lot of the times it's dry. You can walk across it pretty easy. But here this water is coming out of the temple, flowing down into the Kidron Valley, down the Kidron, going south towards the Dead Sea. And there it begins to bring life back. Here he says, verse 6, And he said to me, Son of man, have you seen this? And then he brought me and returned me to the bank of the river. And when I returned there along the bank of the river were very many trees on one side and the other. And he said to me, this water flows towards the eastern region, goes down into the valley, and enters the sea. When it reaches the sea, its waters are healed. And it shall be that every living thing that moves, wherever the river goes, will live. There will be a very great multitude of fish, because these waters go there, for they will be healed, and everything will live, wherever the river goes. So he goes down into the En-Gedi, down into the Dead Sea, and brings life to what was once dead. This is the story of the river of life. We see it ultimately in the book of Revelation, there at the end with the tree and the river flowing out from it. This is very important for us to see that this is not just a physical application, but a spiritual application of the Holy Spirit flowing from God's temple down into what was dead, you and me. And this is contrasted in the book of Revelation with that which was dead and creates for us from their blood the river of death, a river of blood. The whole length of the river here has very similar measurements as the river of blood. Very similar depths up to the horses' bridles. And so we have a direct comparison. A river of life, a river of death. Which one will you partake of? Which one will be your river? Blessings.